What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
What in the world? My name's Jill Haynie, and a lot of you might know me from doing stonework in your backyard or sweating in a hot room at hot yoga, or you might know me from a little podcast I did called Hammered. A story of an insatiable spirit. I don't really like calling that thing a podcast because it's really more than that. I consider it a reckoning. It was something that came to me in October of 2020. I was asleep. I woke up at 3:15 a.m. and I was tossing and turning. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I kept thinking a memory that happened several years before where someone asked me, how in the world does a woman get involved with something like rock work? And it kind of went all over me, because I get that from men all the time, okay? And I can handle that. But when a woman said it, it kind of crawled all over me like, really? And there was a devil and an angel. And it was, do you really want to know how I got involved in rock work? Because I could tell you, and it'd take a real long time, or I'll tell you the scripted, rehearsed answer that I always tell. And I reach over, I pick up a little microphone, and I stuck it in my phone, and I said, what would happen if we chose to tell the truth about ourselves? And from that second, it started, and it went for 6 months. It woke me up every morning between 3 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., the witching hour, the woo-woo hour. And I wasn't sure what it was. I just kind of went with it, and I began to sort of listen to this thing. And I had a woman that approached me that said, why don't you send me a couple of slice of life stories? Well, this is not a slice of life, okay? This is like a whole pie. And so, I began doing that, but what began to happen as I would have to re-listen to these things for editing purposes, I started seeing some patterns, and I started noticing some things in my own life that I would look at and go, God, different places, different faces. Are you kidding? You keep doing the same thing over and over and over for all these years, and you're wondering why you keep having these traumas. And so it was kind of shining a spotlight on some things that I really needed to see. And it started helping me in my life in a tremendous way. Well, then people start reaching out. Once this thing hit the world on, the internet, I start getting messages from people like, wow, this is really helping me. Or, this is really something that I'm interested in knowing more about. I've also had some weird people contact me that want to get together and talk about it. And then they end up, they want to tell their story. And so that's been a running thread also, is that it's given permission for people to tell their own truth. Whether it's true or not, it's true to them. And so when I was asked to do this podcast, my first reaction was, oh, hell no. I've already stuck my neck out and told everything about myself. And I'm not telling one more thing. But that little voice inside was like, oh, hell yeah, you're doing it. And it was a full body hell yeah. And so then I heard the theme was called One Step Up. One step up. So what does that mean to me? I kept thinking one step forward and two steps back. And I was like, I can talk about that all day. But one step up. So what I did was I had to boil that down in my mind to what was a pivotal moment or pivotal moments in my life, turning points that changed the trajectory of my entire existence. So I'm going to tell you a little story. 1986, February, and it was still cold. I was walking out to my little beat-up brown Toyota Corolla, 1975 edition. Couldn't believe it still ran, but it did. And I was leaving a 12-step group, a little white church in Norcross, Georgia. I had on a big trench coat because I was trying to hide my obese, destructive body that I had ruined with alcohol, drugs, and food. And I saw a woman come out and said, wait, hang on. And I was like, oh no, somebody's going to talk to me. And so this woman started coming at me, and I had heard her in the group, and her name was Melanie. And she was kind of a cool woman, you know, she kind of looked like Susan Sarandon. And she had on like kind of a fitting jean jacket and only one collar up. You know, the two thing is just forget about it. But she had one side up. These are things I noticed. I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying, but it says, you know, so, but she starts coming. She goes, I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. She puts her hand on this shoulder and she turned me toward her. And she put both hands on my shoulder and she said, I'm going to say this to you one time. I said, okay. I held my breath. I couldn't breathe. I had a lump in my throat. She holds her hands and she said, if you view this as a prison sentence, that's what this is going to be for you. But if you view this as something magical and mystical that will take you on a ride that you can never imagine, that's what this is going to be for you. And I said, okay. She turned around, she walked off. I got in my Toyota. I started driving on 285. If you're from Atlanta, you know what that is. Well, then it started, the battle. You might as well just give up. You might as well just head to the liquor store because this is not going to work for you. Yeah, but wonder if she's right. She's not right. Yeah, but wonder if she is. She's not right. Look what you've done. Look who you've hurt. Look at everything you've done. But wonder if I did have a chance. Wonder if I could have a decent life. At that point, I realized this little voice, the voice, shows up. Just go home. Go home, go to sleep, give it one more day. If it's not any better tomorrow, forget it. Go to the liquor store. If it's not any better, just give up. So I did that. I went home. I went to sleep. I got up the next day. I gave it one more day. And then another day, and 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 a day, and a day. And this succession of days began to turn into weeks. And these weeks became months. And these months became years. And these years became decades. What would happen if we chose to tell the truth of ourselves? That night, Melanie gave me the biggest gift I've ever been given in my whole life. And it came in the form of a magic wand. And you all hold the same magic wand, and that magic wand is called choice. Flash forward 3 years. I'd gone on a little river trip with some of the 12-step people because I was trying to learn how to have fun without alcohol. And I still had my ways, believe me. And so we go on this trip, and the weekend before, on the Friday afternoon, I had wrecked my vehicle. And I just had it towed to the Toyota place because I didn't want one thing to mess up my plans, okay? So I came back later than some of the other people, and I got involved in something that I shouldn't have gotten involved with, okay? Because I was selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed, a manipulator, a liar. I was a lot of nice things, but I wasn't drinking. So Monday morning rolls around and I'm supposed to go home. I didn't go home that Sunday night. And so I need a ride home. Well, see, Monday morning people go to work. They did back then. In Atlanta on a Monday morning, everybody goes to work. Now, times have changed. Now people don't go to work to real jobs. They stay home. I don't know what they do, but anyway. So I think, who am I going to call? I got to get a ride home. So I call my AA sponsor, Gail. Well, this is taboo, okay? These people are not your taxi service. They're not your bank. They're not going to give you money. Well, I'd never ask her for anything, so I justified this because I thought, well, she loves me. And I've never asked her for anything, and so I call her, and she said, where are you? I told her where I was at. And so she shows up to get me. I get in the car, and I could tell she wasn't real thrilled to be picking me up. She worked 3 to 11. She was a nurse, and so she had that morning time available. So we drive home. It's kind of quiet, and she takes me to my little ghetto duplex on Burney Street, pull in the driveway, and I look at her, and I said, will you come in with me? I'm not coming in with you. And I was like, and she reaches in her purse and she pulls out this yellow Post-it note. She slaps it on my arm. She said, if you live by these 3 things, you might make it, Jill. But if you don't, you're probably not going to make it. Make it as in live. You cannot live like a drunk and stay sober. Ugh. The last thing on the planet I wanted was to upset Gail. I loved her. So I went and looked at this Post-it note. I peeled it off my arm, and it said the 3 rules for honesty. If it's not yours, don't take it. If it's not the truth, don't say it. And if it's not right, don't do it. Duh. I went in that house and I stuck that on a refrigerator for 8 years. Then I went in the next room and I told this person where I had been and what I had done. She packed her shit up and was out of there in 4 days, back to New York City, and I never saw her again. What would happen if we chose to tell the truth about our lives? Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's painful. But sometimes it's necessary. Flash forward 2 months ago, Naxos Island, Greece, where this video was shot. It was super windy, so windy that it was blowing me. I was walking and it would actually blow you. And I was getting kind of worried. Like, I've never been in wind like that in my life. And the sky was blue and, sunny, but the wind was unbelievable. And so by nighttime, I started getting a little bit scared. I was like, man, is the roof going to blow off this place? And I was up on this place called Grotto Hill, and it was these cliffs overlooking the Aegean Sea. And so I was like, well, these buildings were probably built, 1,000 years ago? I guess it'll be okay. And so I drifted off to sleep, and I woke up. But I dreamed that I woke up. I dreamed I woke up. I got up. I walked over to these French doors which had these white kind of sheer curtains. I pulled the curtains back, and I go to open these 2 French doors, and when I did, it blew me backwards. And I went out into the wind. I started going down these steps. The moon was shining over the Aegean Sea, and it was crashing. The waves were going crazy. It was unbelievable, and the wind was blowing. And the closer I got, I started looking, and I'm like, I saw these figures, like these illuminated figures hovering over the sea. And I'm like, that's Poseidon, god of the sea. Apollo, god of the sun. Dionysus, the god of wine. And Zeus, the king of the gods. And I'm like, who summoned them? Or did they summon me? And I stood there, and I was in this wind, and I grounded myself, and I said, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to be locked up inside anymore. And I woke up. I got up. I walked over to those doors. I pulled back those drapes. I opened the French doors, and I thought, if those little fuckers are out there hovering, I'm going to jump off the cliff. And I went out, and it was calm. The moon was shining on the water. It was peaceful, and I stood there. And I thought, what was that about? What in the world? I have lived in my closet, not yours, the closet. And I'm not talking about the gay closet. I'm talking about the who I really am closet for most of my life. We live in a culture that is based on looking good. And I'm not talking just physical looks. I'm talking about where you live, what you wear, who you know, what kind of work you do, and on and on and on and on and on. And you know what I'm talking about. I was thinking the other day about ants. Do you think ants have influencers? I imagine these ants down in the ant hole, like sitting around taking selfies. You know, sometimes I sit in driveways where I'm working and I watch ants on my lunch break. I watch them like try not to run into each other. And they have their own like telepathic language, see. We live in an ecosystem. We are part of an ecosystem, okay? When is it going to be enough? When is it going to be enough, y'all? When are we going to understand that the outside work has to be done? It starts on the inside. And until we recognize that, we're going to continue on this path. What would happen if we chose to tell the truth about ourselves? I'm going to end this with a quote from a woman I called piano teacher Linda. Piano teacher Linda was an atheist. She was a really cool woman. But she said, you know, I'm struggling with this God thing and this church thing and all that stuff. And I was right there with her. She said, you know, I said this thing the other night at my house, and I said it in my house, and nobody's there except me. But I realized I wasn't alone. I said, really? So I'm going to say it to you all. It goes like this. This was piano teacher Linda's prayer. I love you. I trust you. And I need you desperately in my life. Thank you.